Speaking of extreme body language, then this is going to be really controversial, this question. But have you ever looked at the body language of Adolf Hitler when he was doing his speeches?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Mark probably has.
yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah. I have
absolutely. I used to do a lecture on it. In fact, yeah, extremely interesting. Now, of course, Adolf Hitler uh, trained himself as a great orator. He already knew in the First World War that he would stand up on boxes and he would get in front of a crowd and he would start, making speeches. And if you look at the pictures of him making speeches, they're quite what we call German expressionists. So he was actually taking some of the art, which eventually he would strangely outlaw, some of the art of the time, and taking those poses because the grotesqueness of the poses he knew had a great effect on the audience. So you get some of these grotesque and big, almost melodramatic poses that he would use. But I think the most important thing that I see in his speeches is he gestures down the wheel plane, which is right in the center of the body, and he'll often gesture with a cutting, chopping gesture into his hand, and his hand will be at what I call the truth plane. And that gesture alone is about the most dramatic thing anybody can do. The moment you see, it's very different from somebody doing it over here, straight
Frame of
down
reference,
the wheel plane. I mean, if you see somebody doing this, that they mean what they're saying. Yeah, hugely powerful. And of course, he would create with Leni Riefenstahl these cavalcades of Nazism, which were just astonishing to look. Of course, look at. I'm not agreeing with anything that they did, but you have to really understand propaganda. You must go and look at those films to see exactly what they were doing to shift a nation. Extraordinary.
Just doing that makes you start to feel like, "Argh."
Exactly. Me just doing that can move thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Yeah, just them seeing that gesture would go, that little guy there with a strange moustache, he's in charge. Look at the little guy. Look at the little guy just like me. He's going to sort this out. It's basically Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin going, I'll get us through this. It's extraordinary.
I think one of the things that humans know is that when we're making up something and we're not telling the truth, we go out of frame. And this is part of the reason I think it works so powerfully. We go out of frame to illustrate when we're not telling the truth. Watch people when they're trying to lie to you. Often their hands are, the fish was this big. If it's right here, you probably believe that because they're in their frame. Big difference.
Yeah.
Anything to add on that, Chase?
Yeah, Hitler spent a long time studying hypnosis as well, and would routinely use a lot of hypnotic techniques while he was speaking, walking the entire audience into an emotional trance. And believe it or not, you can be in a hypnotic trance with your eyes wide open, driving a car. You could be doing all kinds of crap. But he would use emotion to hook people and then walk them into a trance. So he used that wheel plane gesture that Mark was talking about, but he's also, that's the most, and this is another quote from Mark, he became the most followable person. And we're attracted, our eyes, vision, focus are all attracted to what is the behavior that's most followable here. What can I see? What's easy to interpret? So in that, once you become the most followable person in the room, you automatically transfer your own conviction to other people. So now we're not just transferring behavior and emotion. Now I'm transferring certainty to other people.
Would you say that it's a combination of voice inflection and body language that can put an audience into a trance, or is one more potent than the other?
I think they're about the same. I think the vocal inflection is probably more important because we've been making sounds to each other for a long time. Body language is more important, or body language is maybe even just as important because we've been communicating with it for millions of years. So if you just think back, like what happened first in human evolution? Did we use nonverbal communication or verbal? It was mostly nonverbal. So we're start back to the most effective persuasion is going to be something that would work a million years ago.
If you want to see a great example of how powerful the voice is, though, in cadence, go watch Barack Obama when he delivered the Democratic National Convention speech, first national platform speech, and then watch him late in his presidential campaign. He picked up the rhythm of a preacher, fundamentally changed the reception of the way he spoke. Very different.
Wow.
And I would add into the body language piece as well, being effective, that touch is part of body language as well. And with really good hypnotists, you'll often find touch is involved. In fact, with mesmer, where we get the idea of mesmerism from, my understanding is one of the things he was doing differently from others out there was using a lot of touch, and they called it human magnetism, because he almost passed his hands across people like you might create, with a magnet on a piece of steel, create a new magnet. And my guess would be is what he was using, along with words, along with tone of voice, along with body language, visual body language, was the language of touch. And of course, touch is, we call it haptic response, and haptic engagement. How do you know you're gonna try and spend your life with a partner of some sort? You're probably gonna touch them first in some kind of way. Those touches are so important.
So we've had a question come in from Giselle Rose about the judge's body language. What is your take on the judge? Sometimes she appears so tentative, timid, and defers in power to the lawyers. She is not the persona of Judge Judy. What are your observations?
Yeah, I think rarely you're going to find Judge Judy on the stand in these places. I mean, look, this is Virginia, first of all, and they're elected officials. There's probably a lot of, again, whatever made her successful, she's going to continue to do. And I think we all want it to be My Cousin Vinny or some kind of a trial like that, but it's just procedure. They're all they are is referees. We have to remember that in the U.S. court system. I'll leave it at that and let you guys jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I would say what you're seeing there is somebody who is able to manage the bureaucratic nature of the court, and it is essentially her court. That court belongs to her. She's the highest power in that court. Even higher than the jury, because she will instruct the jury as well. And I think what we're seeing potentially is, the minimum you have to do in order to keep control of that. Everybody's fairly well ordered on it. Everybody knows they're on camera and the world is watching. So there'll be a huge amount of compliance. I would say she's not having to do too much to be in control. I'm sure if it started going, off somewhere, we might see a different performance from her. What do you think, Chase?
I think she is just a normal human, and I think she is affected by the presence of a million people watching, as everyone else in that courtroom. And I think she probably has a naturally really calm demeanor. But I think she's also made a very solid choice to have extreme composure and quietness in the room. And she's just the type of person, I don't think, that feels the need to reassert herself or just assert herself and show her dominance in the courtroom.
What about the lawyers then? Because I was watching it yesterday, and the woman in white who was in Johnny's corner, she had the persona of a Judge Judy, whereas the lawyer for Amber seemed to be like stumbling on her words and falling over herself at times. What's your interpretation of those two?
I think that both sides goes down to a self-worth issue. I think their self-worth is, what I mean is, in this circumstance, in this case, and that really changes how their behavior appears to us. So we're seeing somebody on the other side with a high degree of confidence, high degree of self-worth, and the other side, I see confidence gradually declining because her behavior, her voice has gotten softer every single day. So I think she knows that she might be going down.
Yeah. I mean, I would say with Camille Vasquez, who's the lawyer that you're talking about in the white yesterday, there's a lawyer who I think will never be short of work. I think, what we saw yesterday was, if that was your lawyer, you would go, I think I made a really good choice here. I think this is really good. I mean, calm, assertive, cynical when it plays well, laughing when it plays well, You know, a very good baseline of calm and assertive and direct, extremely direct, with some nuances, some icing of chuckles and sarcasm when it's needed. I thought she was pretty good. I'd like her as my lawyer if I was in that position.
I would add one thing. Most of us make mistakes in thinking that lawyers argue. They don't argue. They take a case apart, bullet by bullet. Most of us make a big mistake by arguing animated and trying to take a story apart without listening to the whole story. What she's doing is pitching something out, having you regurgitate it, and then slicing it up. Very effective, very methodical. And there's no reason for her to get too animated. Yeah.
Do you think it's a strategy to bring a woman in to interrogate a woman, whereas if it were a man, it could be misconstrued as being misogynistic?
Well, I think that's part of it. The other thing, yeah, if you watch the entire thing, the world is watching this case, and if there's any chance there's bias and aggression and that kind of thing, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the facts are. It matters how those 12 people feel when they walk away. If those 12 people feel like she has been hedging and hiding and that she had a fair chance, you win. But if they feel like you just went and beat the hell out of her and didn't give her a breath, you lose. And so I think, yes, that part plays into it. I interrogated prisoners. I would often choose a female partner because her brain worked differently than mine as well. So there's an edge to that.
And that's true. The lawyer's main job is winning over the jury, not proving a legal case. In most, it's sad that the court is won in psychology terms most of the time. And even like if you look in the medical field, if a patient even just likes their doctor a little bit, it reduces malpractice lawsuits by somewhere north of 75%. Just like, oh, sorry, I cut the wrong arm off, but I'll see you on the tennis court.
Yeah,
So
I mean
just
that's amazing, because in that study, they were finding that the malpractice suit would be put upon the least liked person in the hospital by the person with the suit. So basically, you know, if something bad medically happens to you, you will go and find the person you liked least, and you'll try and sue them. And so if you're a likable doctor, but you actually had the knife in your hand, you stand so less chance of being sued. It's extraordinary.
So speaking of the jury then, have you been watching for cues as to which direction they may be leaning in?
Well, I
haven't seen much of the jury
film of them. I think they've been kept off camera completely as far as I can see, maybe for their anonymity. And so that the universe of the internet don't come in hard for them.
Yeah, if you think that people are after us for saying what we said about the McCanns, imagine how polarized people are right now. And if you're one of 12 people who decide.
Guys, it's always hugely fascinating, and I'm going to urge people to go down and click on your links in the description box below this video to subscribe and support your work and check you out on your socials. Can each of you just tell the viewers in a farewell, you know, where they can find you as well, because this goes out on audio only as well to some platforms?
Yeah, so I would really like people to go and find us at thebehaviorpanel.live, thebehaviorpanel.live, because there's a place that you can start to look at how you might be able to come and train with us and study with us live in the same room.
Okay,
Wonderful.
Greg?
Yeah, I think the behaviorpanel.live, Mark's truthplane.com. Mine is readbodylanguage.com, and then Chase yours.
Yep, and mine is just my name. You can just Google my name or go to chasehughes.com. But definitely subscribe to the Behavior Panel to get a ton of this kind of training where we really do deep dives that take several hours sometimes. We're good for a long road trip. Just leave it on in the background.
And
Thanks for having us on, Sean.
Can people find you guys on Twitter as well?
Yeah,
I'm
we're there, the Behavior
great.
Panel.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, huge thank you, guys. Look forward to doing something more with you, and I'll
Thanks, man.
continue watching your stuff. Cheers.